What is up, friends? Nav back here with another video for you today, and we have the day one recap of the CSGO Major ELEAGUE Arena. We're going to be doing a day one recap, recapping some of all the games that happened here on day one, and then looking ahead to day two, making some predictions for those games and seeing what happens. So let's start off with recapping real quick the action that happened today. As you see down here, my day one record was 4-4. Granted, I only had a 50-50 shot at each game, so it kind of adds up. But I think we're going to start off with the game number one, Gambit versus North. This got started off in sort of a weird way. No one was really expecting Gambit to come out and play the way that they did and to beat North. And we have all the HLTV sort of match pages up here for the games. And so you can take a look here. And looking at the stats here, I mean, it just looks like North didn't show up, right? Watching through this game, you could just tell that they weren't playing like they normally would. They weren't playing like their old Dignitas selves, and that was a problem when you have Gambit coming in and playing very well. Everyone on the team played well. You know, even at worst was Hobbit, who was 16-16 KD-wise, and so that's a big thing. Going forward. So getting the tournament started off with what could be considered maybe a minor upset was interesting, and it sort of led the way for the rest of the matches for the day. Not what we expected to happen in some matches, what we expected in others. Just a really interesting day. So starting off, Gambit 16-8 over North. That was on Cobble. You know, like I said, not much to say. It looks like North just didn't show up. There were some of the matches today I wasn't able to catch, so I don't have a ton of info on them. I'm going solely off of what HLTV says. This was one of the games. I believe the first game that I saw in full wasn't until the Liquid Envious match. The first, let's see, 4 games I was unable to catch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't add. Okay, moving on. So that was the first pick that I got wrong for today. Obviously, I picked North and picked North to win, picked Gambit to lose, and it was flip-flopped. Second match of the day, Fnatic versus G2 Esports. I also chose this game wrong. I predicted Fnatic to win. G2, if you remember back from the video that I made, I said G2 they're going through the French potential shuffle. We're not sure what's going to be happening with them, but G2 came out firing. It looked like they were a team that was very prepared to come into this major to play well. Everyone stepped up. RPK, phenomenal game, 28-16 as we see here, plus 12. 114 ADR, which is your average damage per round. So per round, throughout the entire match, he averaged over 100 damage per round. And if you do the math, 100 is a kill. So that's just insane that he averaged 114. That's a great game for him. And he's not the player that we expected to stand out in this game. You typically expect Shocks or Scream. Those are the big name guys for G2 that you say, okay, if they can step up, these guys will have no problem winning the game. But you take a look at Scream, he only went +1, had 72 ADR. You know, that's not that great. Shocks, he had a good game. But when you look over at the Fnatic side, then Crims is the only guy that went positive. Olaf went negative, and Olaf used to be. I mean, if you remember from when Fnatic was the best team in the world, Olaf was this guy that they would take timeouts and say, "Okay, Olaf, where are you gonna go? Get us some entry kills, get us these kills so that we can start going." I think you got to look at Disco Dolphin here. He's the guy that they brought in. He's the new guy on the team, and clearly did not perform on this day in this match. Maybe it was an off match. Maybe he wasn't comfortable playing how G2 was playing. Maybe they had maybe studied G2 and G2 pulled something different out. You know, who knows? These best of one matches are very suspect to upsets and players. If you have a bad game, it's a best of one. You're out of luck if you're having a bad game. And it looks like that's maybe what happened. We got to give him the benefit of the doubt here and say that he can turn it around tomorrow, and that in their game tomorrow he'll do better. We just have to wait and see for that. So again, it looks like G2 showed up, Fnatic didn't. I caught a couple highlights from this game. Really some great plays on both. I mean, you have to give it to both sides. There were great plays, but overall, I mean, G2 just outclassed Fnatic. They're on cash. I believe that one was on cash, yeah. 16-10. Wasn't that close. You know, you gotta think maybe tomorrow Fnatic will come out differently. But if you look here, 9-6 first half. Fnatic had 9 T rounds, and G2 had 6 CT. Then you flop over and you look at this, 1-10 on the second half. G2's T side was phenomenal. Smith's, the strat caller there, must have had something up his sleeve, must have known something. Fnatic just wasn't ready. They couldn't handle it. So Fnatic fall. So if we look here, that was my second loss. So at this point, I was 0-2. Then comes the SK Hellraisers match. There's not much to talk about here. SK just dominated Hellraisers. The score was 16-7. That's not a great score at all for Hellraisers. You would have thought maybe they'd put up a better fight with the type of players that they had. Stiko and Bondik, what the heck, man? 9-20, 6-20. You can't win games in tournaments of this caliber with two players going that negative and doing that little to impact the game whatsoever. As we can see, Angel tried his best to do something, but it wasn't enough when you have a guy like coldzera going 24-10. coldzera, arguably the best player in the world right now. You're gonna have to do better than 9-20 and 6-20 to have any chance at beating SK when they have the talent that they do. The strat calling and falling, it's going to be very hard to do when you've got players going that negative. So again, not much to say there. They got outplayed. So I did predict that one correctly. So now at this point, I was 1-2 on the day. Then came Virtus Pro and Optic. This was that game that I said I had no idea who was going to win. I literally, I don't remember what I said verbatim, but basically I said this is a 50-50 game. Any team could win this. Either team. I have no idea. I chose Virtus Pro. I was correct in that pick, but barely. 16-13 was the final score there. I was able to catch a little bit of this game throughout the day. I was driving, doing some different things. As I was driving, I would listen to the Twitch stream on my phone over the car stereo, and this is what I heard. This is some of the game that I heard. Rush had apparently a really nice 4K at one point to hold off the retake, but it was a very even game, solid game all around. You look at Tarek, though. If Optic wants to advance farther in this tournament where they need, they want to be able to compete with these teams, guys like Tarek have got to step up and play better than what he did today. Naf played well. Rush played well. Stanislaw, the in-game leader, that's about where he's at every game. He's usually not negative, but he played up to a certain. Mixwell and Tarek are the guys you have to look at and say, okay, they need to step up. Tarek more so than Mixwell, because you can't have one of your star players going that poorly and expect to do well. Now, that being said, we look over here on the Virtus Pro side, and Snacks went off. It's 28-14, excuse me. Bialy was +1, but other than that, even negative. So it was a very even game kill-wise. Score-wise as well, 16-13 is a very tight score. There was a couple rounds there at the end where one or two kills go the other way, and this is a different scoreline. This might be 16-14 Optic or 16-13. It could have gone either way. There was just a few pivotal rounds there that really tilted it to Virtus Pro's favor. And then this is, like I said, this is the game that I said was a 50-50 matchup, and it proved to be that way. Very close game, right down to the wire. But so that means that Virtus Pro advances and is 1-0. Optic is now 0-1. That was my second correct pick of the day. So we're gonna move on. Navi Mousesports. This was pathetic. 16-3 Navi over Mousesports. I mean, it was there. There's nothing to say. I mean, just look at this. Look at the scoreline here. That it's just what when you got. I said in the prediction video, Nico is the guy that goes off, right? Nico's the guy that does well and carries the team, and we got to have the guys like Chris J step up. We have to have the guys like Dennis and Lowell. But none of them did well. I mean, not even Nico. Nico went, double negative almost, -9. And then you got Speedy down here, 2-17. Like, what are you going to do with that? You literally were playing, like, without a player, basically. You were basically playing 4v5 here. Against Navi, it's not going to work. Navi is one of the best teams in the world. That's not going to work. So that was a wash, not even close. I did correctly pick that, which I think a lot of people did. Navi over Mousesports. Navi now 1-0. Mousesports 0-1 in the Swiss format. The next game, quite possibly the best game of the day. It's either this one or the Optic Virtus Pro, but I'm giving this one the best game of the day. Liquid and Envious. Now, I was lucky enough to catch this one. I caught this from roughly the first half halfway through the first half on. So like I think when I tuned in, the score line was like something. It was like the 9th round or something like that. What a game, man! I mean, we looked at this game going into it, and I personally said, I'm not sure who's going to win this. I picked Liquid to win this because, again, I was looking at the French shuffle thinking none of these French teams are going to be coming into this very hot. Now, Envious had come off of the WESG win, or WSEG, whatever the tournament was called. They came off the win in that tournament, but I thought, that's not gonna really do much. I thought Liquid, having boot camped for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I thought that they were gonna come out and really just come out in great form and show Envious the real Liquid and play well. And that just wasn't the case. That's not to say that they played poorly, but at one point it was 15-7. That's not a great scoreline. Had the game ended 16-7, you look at that scoreline and say that's pretty sad. Liquid did not play well. But at 15-7, an early case for play of the tournament, JDM, in the 1v5 scenario, gets the clutch ace with the op to win the round and to keep them alive, and that jump started them, and they ended up taking it to overtime. It went from 15-7 to 15-8, all the way up to 15-15, triple overtime. But what happened in that overtime then, and it was kind of sad, was it looked like Envious, as I turn over this paper, as it looked like Envious just sort of outclassed them a little bit, right? It got to overtime. Liquid playing very well. Everything was working out, but you could sort of see the tide start turning. You could see Envious started figuring out what was going on, started reading it a little bit better in that first, second, third overtime. And it looked like Liquid sort of ran out of ideas. The last round, they sort of just threw themselves into the grinder of Envious. Or that was either the last round or the second to last round. I mean, they were literally just throwing themselves through smoke, trying to get onto the bomb site. It looked like they ran out of ideas, and Envious just overpowered them, which was sad to see because of how great they had brought it back. And those kind of comebacks are hard, right? Especially against these pro teams, and coming back from 16-7 down, that's hard to do. So the fact that they were even able to take it to a third overtime is really impressive in its own right. So that was the next match that I got wrong. I picked Liquid over Envy. Obviously, Envy ended up winning. And now we move on to the upset of the first round. Astralis, Godsent. Astralis, it was almost a unanimous that Astralis would win not only this game, but the tournament in general. People thought that they were the favorites coming in heavily. And that could still be. I mean, granted, they're not out by any stretch of the imagination, but this game was a stomping. 16-6. Godsent destroyed Astralis in everything that they tried to do. You see the guys like Lekro coming in and looking at his stats, he played out of his mind. Lekro is this guy that had never played on this big stage like this major tournament, and he came in and really, really played well. And it looked like, after the first half, that was a 12-3 first half for Godsent, who were on the CT side. You thought, okay, Train used to be, historically, Train has been a CT-sided map. Since Valve reworked it, it has been less so. So you thought, okay, 12-3 is probably too far one side on CT. You would think Astralis would get more than 3 rounds, but okay, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe they have something up their sleeve for CT. No, didn't happen. Godsent came out in the second half, won the pistol, won the next round. I think they were sitting at 15-3 at that point before Astralis had 3 rounds that they rattled off. But it ended up, Godsent won 16 after they kept getting the bomb down, so they kept having money. So they just kept buying up, and eventually Astralis just couldn't handle it, and they sort of faltered there. But this is something where Astralis is going to have to go back to the hotel tonight and look at what they did wrong, forget about it, and then move on to tomorrow, because that's all they can do at this point. I mean, you lose one game, you're down to 0-1. You got to win 3 to advance, lose 3 to be out. So it made it harder for themselves, yes, but by no means are they out. They could still come back easily tomorrow and do well and proceed through the tournament and win it. This is just a small speed bump, but still an amazing game by Godsent. Props to them. everyone did well, all the way down to Pronax, the in-game leader. He even went positive. And you look at guys like JW and Schneider, 107 ADR, 100 ADR respectively. I mean, everyone on the board was doing well. And then you've got guys like Dupree, 5 and 20, Zipnix, 7 and 19. You gotta have something better than that. And like I said, all these best of ones against all these teams in the major, you gotta bring your A game, because even though Godsent was one of these teams that we looked at going into the major and being like, oh, they're probably not one of the best teams here. They're probably, honestly, they're probably one of the lower tier teams here. Astralis didn't bring it. Godsent swept them out of the room, basically, is what happened, and that's that. So Astralis has to move on. Godsent, if they can keep playing like that, they look good to continue on in the tournament. So let's take a look-see here. That was the next game I got wrong. Then finally, FaZe Flipside. Yeah, FaZe Flipside. And I was so sad when I saw this. This game was Nuke. They played on the map Nuke, which I don't like Nuke at all. But FaZe took this one pretty convincingly. The thing about Nuke is that you have to understand, Nuke is a map that caters itself to playing tactically and having these great set pieces. I mean, throughout the map, we saw both teams shooting out the windows above the A bomb site, because you can throw nades in there. You shoot them out early, they don't know what's going to happen, when things are going to happen. So you do that early, get it out of the way. And it plays itself to being tactical. The thing I didn't see from Flipside, and when you have a strat caller like Blade, you expect to see this. I didn't see very many of those set pieces. They had a couple where they would do set smokes on the outside to get down to secret, but it didn't look like they had a lot of set pieces for the A site, and it didn't look like they really utilized anything other than their outside smokes. Now, I will say that they moved very well as a team. Tactically, they were great. They executed well. It's just they didn't have those set pieces. One of the things that I really like to see from them, there was one round in particular where I forget who it was in heaven for FaZe. Flipside was on the T side and FaZe was on the CT side. Down in hell were 2 players for Flipside, and then wrapping around the rafters to heaven were 2 players from Flipside. One of the players down in hell was on the ladder, and the other one was tossing flashbangs up. And the way they coordinated it to get 3 guys up into heaven, kill out the heaven defender for FaZe, was really just a cool take on heaven that I had never seen before. And granted, Nuke doesn't get played that often, so you don't really get to see a lot of gameplay from it. But that was just a really cool take. I thought that they played it very tactically well, executed well, but they just didn't have the firepower to come out and beat FaZe. FaZe played well in their own right. They were great at the team play today. You never really saw too many guys running around by themselves. Everyone sort of played as a unit, as one large unit, which is what you have to do if you want to win, and that really is what won them the game. Just a side note here, we look at Electronic for Flipside. He's the new guy that came in. He was kind of the unknown, if as it were, the guy that a lot of these experts had said, okay, this is the guy to look out for, right? He's unknown, but he's got a lot of firepower. He can really show this tournament. He can use to show what he's all about. And he did play well. He's the only guy on the team that went positive. If you take KD into as big of an effect as I do, that's not the right word, but he played well, and so that was good to see. Electronic, the new guy, the unknown. Hopefully he continued that throughout the tournament and make a good showing and a good name for himself, and see where he can wind up in the Counter-Strike scene. All right, so that is all of the games for the first day. Like I said, I went 4-4. So that leaves us in a predicament. We've got a lot of 0-1 teams that we did not expect to be 0-1. We got a lot of teams that are 1-0 that we did not expect to be 1-0. So the way that the format's set up, if we take a look, we now have 8 1-0 teams and 8 0-1 teams. The 8 0-1 teams will play each other. The 8 1-0 teams will play each other. And they won't all play each other, but they'll play one other team that's 1-0 or one other team that's 0-1. So logistically, that brings a lot of problems, because now you've got teams like Astralis, Optic, North, who are all 0-1. One of these teams, if the matchups worked right, would go down to 0-2. Well, wouldn't you know it? If we look down here, Optic, Astralis are playing each other. One of those teams is going to be 0-2. You look at North, Fnatic. One of those teams is going to be 0-2. Just great. So we're going to start off here. I see that this is not what I actually wanted it to be. Let's see. We're gonna have to get rid of this. Badoink, badoink, badoink. So we're gonna get rid of that, but you know we're just gonna keep it. So this is gonna be the predicted winners, predicted losers, and I spelled that wrong. Predicted. There we go. Predicted losers. All right, we're gonna keep this here. We'll fix this after the video's over. So we've got the 8 matchups for tomorrow. Matches start at 10 a.m. Match number 1, Mouse Sports versus Hellraisers. I gotta think Hellraisers is gonna take this one, simply because, or I'm sorry, not Hellraisers, Mouse Sports. Sorry, because I just can't see Hellraisers playing. Well, okay, both teams played horribly. Let's just say that. Hellraisers played SK. We looked at that. Stiko and Bondic. If they can come out and play, it might be a match. But I think Mouse Sports will use tonight and use the loss and look at that when they get back to their room and say, okay, here's what we need to do better. And I think that they will come out a lot better. I think Nico will play better. I think Chris J will play better. I think Lowell, you know, he's my guy to watch in this match tomorrow. If Lowell can come out and play very well and then have these other guys, you know, not play terribly, I think Mouse Sports is going to take that match. So I'm going to take Mouse Sports over Hellraisers in game number 1 tomorrow. I keep trying to put Hellraisers. Match number 2, Navi versus Envy. You know, we saw Envy and Navi both win today. Navi a little more convincingly than Envy. Envy almost choked that at the end. They had that 15-7 lead, almost lost it out. There's a couple times in overtime where Liquid really should have beat Envy. So because of that, I'm taking Navi. They looked a little more strong today than Envy did. But like I said in the last video, these are all going to be best of ones again. So anything can happen. Any player can do well. Any team can beat any team at any time. These are just my predictions for day 2. So Navi over Envy is what we're going to take tomorrow. Going to this game, this is going to be an interesting game to watch, and this is going to come down to, I think, the map pick. I don't think FaZe, realistically, I don't think FaZe is going to beat SK. But if they can get a map, if the ban system can work to their favor, where they can get a map that SK is not too good at, and maybe that they're good at, FaZe being, I think FaZe could put up a fight, but I think SK is going to take this one. I don't see FaZe. FaZe is a great team. Historically have not done well in the majors. They've always gone out in groups. They just haven't advanced far. I don't think FaZe is going to have the firepower to take this one over SK. If you've got Cold Zero playing like he has been, and Fallen's one of the best in-game leaders, you know, if he's strat calling and making the correct calls, I think this is going to be SK all the way. So that's my hashtag for that one, SK all the way. Flip side versus Liquid is the next matchup. This is kind of a weird matchup, because I don't know who to pick because they both played poorly. Liquid, of course, came back against Envy after that heroic play from JDM. ELEAGUE went huge, as he always does in the majors. So for that reason, I'm going to be taking Liquid over Flipside. Flipside, I don't think they have the sheer firepower to hang with Liquid. They do have the calling and blade, but I think just if you look across the board at the players that they have, I just don't think they stack up to Liquid. I think Liquid is just too good, and they showed it. Yes, they played poorly against Envy, but they had flashes of greatness. They had ELEAGUE who stepped up. Hiko did not do terribly. I mean, let's see. Let's take a look here. Hiko has not done great. Okay, so he did go negative. I don't know who I was thinking of then. Hiko didn't do great. He needs to step up, but he has not done well historically in the majors. But ELEAGUE, look at those stats: 48 and 33. ELEAGUE always does well, and I just think that's going to be too much for Flipside. I think Pimp's going to come out tomorrow and play well as well, and then I think JDM's going to play much better than he did today. He was missing some shots. Yes, he did have that clutch, and he was hitting some good shots, but throughout the entire match, he was just missing a couple. He didn't seem to be quite on his game. I think they're going to step up, and I think they're going to beat Flipside tomorrow. Looking at North Fnatic, I think you got to take North here. Coming into this tournament, they were playing very well as Dignitas. They had won a couple tournaments. They were sticking with these top teams. And I think this is going to serve as a wake-up call, much like it's going to serve as a wake-up call for Mouse Sports, just in a different way. I think North has a realistic shot to advance farther in the major, whereas I don't really think Mouse Sports does. But I think North is going to take this one over Fnatic. Fnatic looked lost in their game versus G2. I'm not saying that they couldn't win it, but I just don't see that happening until they show me something different. And granted, this is all going off of what the matches today were. I'm basing it off of their performances today. So looking at that, I don't see Fnatic winning over North. I think North is going to be too good. I think they're going to come out and play well. I really hope so, because I want to see great matches, right? You don't go into a Counter-Strike tournament and say, oh, we don't want to see great matches. We want to see, terrible matches. No, you want to see the best matches. And I think North will come out and play well. And I sound like a broken record saying, oh, I think these players will play, but I think it's true. So we're going to move on then to Optic versus Astralis. This is the game that tugs on my heart, right? Because I told you in the first video, I'm an Optic fan. I really want them to do well. They've had tournaments and games in the past that they've played Astralis. I'm thinking specifically there's 2 games or 2 tournaments where they met up with Astralis and ended up beating them. Astralis then in the third tournament that they played in a row or something like that, matched up with Optic and then beat Optic then. It's this scenario is weird. It's unfortunate they both fell to 0-1. Optic had a close game with VirtusPro, could have won. Unlucky draw to get Astralis. I don't know. I'm going to stick with my boys here and say Optic, simply because I'm fanboying and this is a 50-50 in my eyes. But imagine if Astralis really does go down to 0-2. They're down to one more loss before they're out of the tournament. This tournament that people said, they were going to be the clear favorites. If there was a clear favorite, it would be Astralis. And we look at when Astralis used to be TSM, they always had this curse about them where they couldn't get out of semifinals. Well, I don't know if this curse is going to follow them into this where they can't get out of the groups here. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but in this matchup, I'm taking Optic over Astralis and hoping that the boys can pull it out and take the victory here. Coming down here to the second to final matchup, Godsent versus Gambit. Godsent played phenomenally. They looked like Fnatic of old, minus Olaf Meister and Krim. So Godsent is Flusha, JW, Pronax, Lekro, and Schneider. They played very well. I think if they come out and do that again, it's not going to even be close. I think they're going to wipe the floor with Gambit. I really do. I think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to wipe the floor with them, but they could if they played like they did today against Astralis, where they 16-6 them. So because of that, I'm taking Godsent in this matchup. Really just surprising gameplay that they had over Astralis. Really quality calls from Pronax, and everyone was playing well. They keep that up. I mean, most teams are going to have a hard time beating them. Now, that's not me predicting that Godsent's going to win the tournament. That's just me saying I think in this matchup over Gambit, it's going to be Godsent, because I just don't think that Gambit's going to be able to stay with them. Now, excuse me, that being said, Gambit could come out and play phenomenally as well, and we could have a great game here. This has the makings of being a phenomenal game if the teams come out and play well. But just realistically speaking, I think Godsent's going to take this. And this comes down to VirtusPro and G2, another 50-50 toss-up. Looking at this, VirtusPro had a really close game against Optic. G2 beat Fnatic. Looking at that competition, you could say that Optic is much better than Fnatic at the time. They're in much better form. That lends itself to VirtusPro winning the harder matchup yesterday, right? So I don't know how you want to look at it. I don't know if you want to take that into consideration, but you look at if RPK can come out and play like this again and have everyone step up, I think VirtusPro would have a hard time sticking with them. But the experience of VirtusPro, the players that they have, that chemistry, I think that's going to be too much. I think they're going to come out, and I think it's going to be a good game, but I think that VirtusPro is going to come out and just sort of outclass G2 a little bit here. I just think that they're too good right now, and they're playing too well. And in these majors, VirtusPro always plays well, and you never want to count out VirtusPro. And you can always say that VirtusPro is a contender to win the entire tournament. So because of that, I'm going to be taking VirtusPro over G2 in the final matchup of the day. So these are my predictions for For day 2, we've got Mass Sports over Hellraisers, Navi over Envy, SK over FaZe, Liquid over Flipside, North over Fnatic, Optic over Astralis, Godsent over Gambit, and then Virtus Pro over G2. I will make another one of these videos tomorrow, recapping day 2, looking ahead to day 3, and we'll go from there. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of these predictions, what your predictions are for day 2, and maybe how you fared in the day 1 predictions. Like I went 4-4. Maybe you guys did a lot better. Maybe some of you went 8-0. Maybe some of you went 0-8. Let me know. And if you like these videos, please leave a like. I would appreciate it. If not, whatever. I can't make you do anything. I will see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.